After turning the last page of the Sasuke Shinden light novel, I put the book down, feeling disappointed in a sense. I felt as if the novel didn't quite match my expectation of a Naruto story. However, this wasn't due to a lack of lovable characters or story writing, as I believe it was pretty consistent with the Naruto story I have adored for years, but rather the art medium it was told in. Upon further thought, I came to the conclusion that the Naruto story is not suited for a format outside of manga or anime, which is a shock, I know, but I also came to the conclusion to my own taste, solving the quote-unquote mystery of sorts of my aversion to other storytelling mediums, or art mediums as a whole. Manga, and the medium of anime stemming from it, is the most fulfilling and ultimate art medium, for lack of a better word. The medium of manga is able to incorporate elements of nearly every basic variation of artistic expression outside of the auditory, merging hand-drawn illustrations and cinematography with story writing and world building to create a perfection of visual storytelling, all within the confines of self-contained stories, separating the medium from the similar comic book industry in the West. All of this is to say that when in the hands of a mangaka genius, a seemingly inconspicuous art form blends film study with breathtaking portraits and murals to form captivating, unparalleled narratives, with one such genius being the visionary of this video's subject, Hirohiko Araki. Hirohiko Araki's main claim to fame is his 1987 anthological manga JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, organized into 8 individual self-contained parts, with the 9th ongoing as of 2025. As dear to me as this franchise may be, I could never hope to properly analyze each individual part in one video, so for the purposes of this video, only one part is to be analyzed. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5, Golden Wind, the perfection of art. Fighting God, 自分の道を信じた者だけがいつか輝ける命の限り. This may or may not seem to betray my introduction, that's up for you to decide, but instead of analyzing the original manga of Golden Wind, I'll be using the 2019 anime adaptation. For a few reasons, such as the added stylistic color palette changes and motion breathed into the story by way of the gorgeous animation by David Production, but most importantly, the new artistic medium of sound by which the story is emboldened. Be that in voice acting, sound effects, and music, I believe the identity of the Golden Wind story is accentuated greatly by the geniusly creative sound design and beautiful score by Yugo Kanno, and once again complemented by the legendary Coda's intro sequences and the outro too, I guess. So we start in Italy with our lead protagonist Giorno being introduced with him nonchalantly walking by the crimes in his city, immediately setting a morally ambiguous tone to his character, contrasting largely not just with more typical shonen or seinen protagonists, but even the protagonists of other parts of JoJo, who up until Part 5 have all been paragons of morality. This tone is seemingly unchallenged in the next scene, in which he returns a stolen purse to a tourist. However, this action's morality is immediately rescinded by showing the audience that he used his supernatural abilities, we'll get to that later, to steal some of the money for himself, which is once again juxtaposed in the next scene showing Giorno using the money to buy ice cream for himself and a kid that was lingering in the background. This quadruple fake out on Giorno's moral standing is genius as an introduction to his character, not only effectively captivating the audience on his story, but also on the unraveling of his character, leaving viewers wanting to see more in the span of 2.5 minutes in. Right after the introduction of Giorno, a familiar face from a previous part of JoJo makes his appearance in Naples, first seeing Giorno bribing a cop with cigarettes and then right after approaching him to offer a taxi ride into the city. Right after Koichi loads his luggage, Giorno drives off, successfully stealing his belongings despite Koichi's own ability, once again showing the audience Giorno's questionable character, which is teetering more towards a concretely selfish personality at this point, as well as a building trait, his on-the-fly cleverness, which becomes a staple of his character moving forward. The cleverness I mentioned is put on full display immediately following the luggage robbery, with Giorno encountering Leaky Eye Luca, who is a brutal mobster demanding tribute from Giorno, as well as the introduction to the Passione Mafia gang. This Luca character is fairly easily killed through the usage of Giorno's abilities, further adding to the mystery of what his ability actually is. After some unimportant hijinks, the real adventure begins with Giorno's meeting with Bruno Bucciarati, a character given one of the most eccentric introductions I have ever seen. He is revealed to be a Passione member out for Luca's killer, originally only speaking with Giorno for light questioning. However, this quickly turns south for Giorno, giving us a brutal and demanding confrontation that is perpendicular to the weaselly nature of Giorno that we have seen thus far. Naturally, Giorno is put on the back foot. However, upon activating his own stand ability, Golden Experience, he is able to not only utilize it to secure the win against Bucciarati, but also outwit him in a crosstown chase, leading to round 2 of their fight, in which the two use their stance to near strategic perfection in order to kill the other, with the end result being a decisive victory for our protagonist, who decides to spare Bruno Bucciarati's life. This violent encounter quickly turns peaceful as Giorno explains his disdain for Passione's members selling drugs to children, and decides to join Passione to overthrow its boss and to fix the corruption from inside, enlisting Bucciarati's help. Oh, and all of this occurs within 2 episodes. If it hasn't at least piqued your interest, I don't know what would. Moving on, Giorno's speech on Bucciarati worked perfectly, with Bruno filing a false report for Luca's killer and Giorno becoming a fully fledged Passione member, killing a capo with a banana gun and being added to Bruno's pre-existing band of misfits, those being Abbacchio, Narancia, Fugo, and Mista, who serve as supporting protagonists for the rest of the story, assisting Giorno and Bruno in their quest to depose the boss. So that's the basic premise without getting super deep into spoilers. So from here on, we're going to be into bigger spoiler territory, where I will be talking about the character writing and the most well-crafted power system in anime, stands, and the fights that come with them. In the universe of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, after its second part, stands are the source for all supernatural abilities, serving as the power system for this narrative. Stands themselves are basically physical manifestations of someone's soul, with the stand's specific, unique ability tied tangentially with the user's inner self and their self-induced place in the world they live in. For example, Leon Abbacchio's stand ability, Moody Blues, is a manifestation of his driving character origin, regret. Years before the story's beginning, Abbacchio was a cop working in the streets of Naples, seemingly following his lifelong dream of protecting people. However, he was soon corrupted into taking bribes, and this led to the death of his partner, as well as his discharge from the force, completely shattering his dreams. Moody Blues allows Abbacchio to view a reenactment of an event through the perspective of a person of his choice, which is ironic, as a core character trait of Abbacchio is his intense desire to forget his haunting past, even for just a fleeting moment. And his subtle character traits go even further than that, like his apparent hatred for Giorno, in which he rejects any self-sacrificing plan Giorno comes up with, stemming from his self-blame for his former partner's death. And that's just Abbacchio. There are 6 other protagonists who are just as complex, like Fugo's stand, Purple Haze, being a manifestation of childhood abuse, Bucciarati's fierce loyalty and sense of responsibility to his subordinates, forcing him to keep fighting and leading the team after his literal death, and the protagonist Giorno's messianic persona manifesting in his ability to give and create life, and many more, with a few I'll get to later, along with some of the antagonists. So it can easily be said that Araki was in his bag with the character writing here. However, I'd like to highlight an aspect of battle manga that can run deeply in tandem with it, the art of battle writing. Luckily for me, the fight I'm about to talk about requires a lot less setup to be explained, so I'll keep it brief. Basically, Bucciarati's group was assigned directly by the secretive boss of Passione to escort his daughter Trish to Venice, where she would be delivered to him directly. A former Passione group, La Squadra Esecuzioni, has set their sights on capturing Trish for themselves with the ultimate goal of exposing the boss's identity in order to locate and kill him. The La Squadra members Prosciutto and Pesci, who happen to be brothers, are able to intercept Bucciarati's party on the 3.5-hour train ride from Napoli to Venice, thus setting a stage and time frame for the confrontation. Unbeknownst to them, Bucciarati had come into the possession of a literal turtle stand user, courtesy of the boss, storing the gang within itself like a pocket dimension of sorts, with Bruno hiding it under a seat to keep Trish out of the enemy's reach. This triggers the La Squadra brothers to begin a search, with the elder brother Prosciutto activating his stand, the Grateful Dead, to begin smoking out the team by rapidly aging them. This is able to work on Giorno and Urantia to great success, with Giorno surmising that the aging affects its targets based on their body temperature, with the warmer the body temperature, the faster the aging, until the person affected eventually dies, putting the remaining crew in a race against time, as not only are their comrades aging rapidly to their demise, but they eventually will begin to feel the effects as well. With nothing but his gun and a couple ice cubes to lower his body temperature, Mista is sent out first. He finds the train's air conditioner, attempting to lower the temperature, however he falls into a trap set by Pesci, the moronic younger brother, using his stand to drag Mista into a direct confrontation. Mista is able to use his sex pistols to hit the ice that Pesci was using to stave off the Grateful Dead, prompting him to panic and release his stand. Beach Boys hold on him. This allows Mista to move in on Pesci and corner him, attempting to get him to say his brother's location. However, Prosciutto had disguised himself as a passenger affected by the aging, and is able to catch Mista, revealing that he can age a target quicker through direct contact, defeating and seemingly killing Mista before he can even react, promptly re-aging himself and scolding Pesci harshly for his weak-mindedness, illustrating the idiot grunt and enigmatic boss dynamic the two share, with Pesci being portrayed as entirely reliant on Prosciutto's protection and guidance. The fight between Mista and the brothers was used by Bucciarati to make his own escape out of the turtle, concealing himself in his stand's own dimension until he's able to ambush the enemy, possessing all the knowledge on Prosciutto's stand that Mista was able to gain by way of one of the sex pistols. He quickly knocks out Pesci, leaving it a one-on-one against the elder brother, who is easily handled in a quick fight. However, the aging effect is amplified on Bruno due to the heat generated from fighting, causing his stand to lose its effect and once again giving Prosciutto the upper hand, with him grabbing Bruno for a quick finish. Bruno without hesitation uses his stand to zip open the floor beneath them, sending them both flying out of the moving train, leaving Prosciutto to rely on his recently recovered and competent partner to save him, who narrowly succeeds. However, Bucciarati is able to knock the elder brother off of Pesci's life rope, mangling him underneath the train, and allowing him to reboard without the threat of the rapid aging to finish things with Pesci, who has been ignited after his brother's death. Pesci is able to put Bucciarati on the ropes by digging his fishing line into Bruno's heart, forcing him to use his stand ability to dismember himself to the point of losing his breathing and heartbeat to avoid the instant kill set up from Beach Boy. After losing sight of Bruno's heartbeat, Pesci begins to freak out and overthink, stopping the train mistakenly, allowing Bruno to piece himself back together with his ability and finally confront the younger brother one-on-one, with intense melodrama lining every single second of this climactic meeting. Bruno is able to fairly easily see through Pesci and break his neck in seconds. However, Pesci reveals he has taken the turtle and begins to spike it at the ground in an attempt to kill the whole protagonist crew in one motion. And Bruno is once again able to swiftly counter, saving his crew. And after this, the conclusion is satisfying to say the least. I could sit here and gush about it and analyze it to Kingdom Come, but this one is simply perfect in its presentation.
何をやったってしくじるもんなのさ。ゲス野郎はな。アリーベ・デルチ。
I think the sheer genius within Araki's fight writing is showcased here, with the battle utilizing every single possible part of the setting in a way as to keep the actions of the cast believable whilst maintaining the stylistic strangeness of JoJo's to a fine point. As you heard, the sound design was on point, making each and every move just as satisfying to listen to as it is to watch, and as you've been hearing throughout the video, the music is also pure 10 out of 10 stuff. The last fight I want to talk about here is narratively speaking a strange pick, but hopefully I make you see the vision by the end of me talking about it. Risotto Nero vs Vinegar Doppio. So remember those La Squadra guys? Well, by episode 26, the majority of the team had all been killed by Bruno's group. Well, all besides the ringleader, Risotto Nero. Nero had pinpointed the location of Trisha's birthplace to Sardinia, and knowing the boss would be there to eliminate her, moved in to kill him himself. We get to see the perspective of Doppio, an unsuspecting agent of Passione who is personally delivering items that are crucial to the operation, which is already a red flag, but also is able to telepathically talk to the boss through a doll, which at this point it doesn't take analysis to discern that he has some special connection to the boss. Well, in that conversation, the boss explains Nero's whereabouts to Doppio, who is near immediately after confronted by him. In this intense and brief encounter, Nero decides to leave Doppio alone. However, Doppio shows a reaction to a faint noise in the background, the noise of the stand Aerosmith, meaning that Doppio is 100% a stand user and therefore a Passione member, causing Nero to shift his focus to an attacking Doppio, who mysteriously begins vomiting out razor blades and being stabbed through needles within his own body. Nero slips away after cleverly discerning Doppio's stand range, and Doppio gets a call from the boss telling both Doppio and the audience of a power that was bestowed upon him. He calls him on a frog, by the way. I just thought I should mention that. Now that the setup is out of the way, we can get to the nitty-gritty of the fight, which starts after the boss instructs Doppio on his ability, which allows him to see 10 seconds into the future, which run tandem with the discovery that Nero is invisible, allowing the combatants to engage in a strange, short-range, open-field cat-and-mouse chase that I at least found endearing for the brief moment it lasts, before Doppio panics after seeing a vision of scissors being lodged in his throat, attempting to attack Nero before it can happen, and narrowly missing, with his epitaph coming true right after. After seeing his mysterious predictions, Nero takes a more cautious approach, with Doppio seeing a vision of his foot being amputated from within, deciding to actively go against the boss's wishes for the first time and withstand the attack. However, Nero decides to attack the phone Doppio has been using, confirming Doppio's suspicions about Nero's stand ability, Metallica, and confirming the angle Nero approached him at, which is something that blew me away on my first watch. He uses this split-second window to redirect Nero's attack at his own foot, chopping it off, fulfilling the vision set by Epitaph. This put Nero on the losing end, but ultimately allowed him to discover Doppio's own ability, suggesting that the boss is another personality within Doppio because foreshadowing, and then reattaches his foot. Nero then readjusts his plan of attack, becoming far more aggressive, forcing Doppio to reveal pieces of the boss's stand not yet seen, but to no avail. After repeatedly seeing visions of Nero's vicious onslaught, Doppio's character begins to unravel, going into a frenzy despite the boss's guidance. This is all before Nero drops a bombshell. He has exhausted all of the iron from Doppio's body. This causes Doppio to panic even more, with Nero enjoying his lead by thinking about his next move, citing that Bruno's gloop has closed in on the area, leaving him on a time limit. Doppio has also taken notice of this, and the boss explains that the next attack must be the end of it, as he cannot be discovered by Bucciarati's group. After seeing a vision of his death, Doppio and the boss argue about the winning move, in which the boss tells Doppio to wait on his arrival, to which Doppio claims he cannot wait and must kill Nero now, suggesting out his location by way of magnetism and throwing the killing blow. Or so it would seem, as Nero planned for this, using his severed foot to generate a magnetic field to misdirect Doppio's attack, promptly finishing things before...
This is the end for you. Send him to oblivion. Metallic! What?
So that wraps up the fight segment of the video at like half of the runtime of this video, good lord, and segues us nicely into the final act and conclusion of the story, which I personally believe to be one of the more defining parts of an anime in a genre polluted by generally garbage endings. For the ending of JoJo Part 5, it isn't nearly bad by any stretch of the imagination. However, I think there are certainly points that aren't as strong as the rest of the narrative. But first, let's rewind a bit and talk about it. After a clusterfuck of an interaction in which the souls of Bruno's group, Doppio, Trish, and the boss, whose name is Diavolo by the way, try to obtain the Requiem arrow, which basically makes the person who uses it unbeatable, Bruno's soul is able to clutch up and return everybody who survived to their bodies at the cost of his own life in a beautiful send-off to his character. If this sounds confusing and hard to keep track of, it is, but at this point all but Diavolo and Giorno remain, with Diavolo dead set on taking the MacGuffin arrow and becoming his ideal version of a king. However, Giorno has already taken it into his possession, stabbing his stand golden experience with the arrow, with it taking no effect. This seems to prove Diavolo's view that the arrow chooses its wielders, and that Giorno was not deemed worthy before seemingly killing him. Well, you know shonen tropes, so you know that Giorno is actually the chosen wielder, which, despite how I'm making it sound, is executed rather well with the reveal of Golden Experience Requiem, literally leaving his former stand behind as a hollow shell. After this, Diavolo clings to his pride, using his ability to try to nullify his advantage, However, mysteriously his ability is reversed, accompanied with beautiful animation and sound design sticking out even against the rest of the show. By the hands of Golden Experience Requiem, Diavolo's time erasure is brought to zero, and he is doomed to experience an infinite amount of deaths for the rest of eternity. While this ending is certainly satisfying and entertaining, I can't help but think it's a little anticlimactic. It almost seems like Araki wrote himself into a corner or tried to create an interesting fight by using scale, which to me at least betrays the purpose a lot of the battle writing in the story as well as the power system it uses, which is able to geniusly use small scale abilities to create iconic and deep fights throughout the entire story. However, for the climactic final battle, it doesn't even try. This isn't to say that the ending is bad at all, or that it wasn't cool, and to be honest, I really only noticed that issue on my rewatch. However, I still think it's important to point that out for the sake of criticism in the video. To round out the video, I will talk about the symbolism of Golden Wind, and why I think that this anime has reached the pinnacle of art. The symbolism of Golden Wind is mainly Christian, with an obvious pointer being in Diavolo's name, literally meaning devil. However, it runs far deeper than that. Alright, so Giorno's Mafia Jesus. Okay, that might be a little too direct, but you'll see what I mean. So, Giorno's unseen biological father is literally named Dio, which translates to God. Also, within Bruno's group, he has no direct power, however, he's able to sway the group into his dreams, akin to Jesus' collecting of his apostles, both with the group goal of leading people away from evil, or more specifically, an unseen evil in the devil, or in this case, Diavolo. Along the way, he performs many miracles with Gold Experience, one of which literally being raising the dead, potentially mirroring the resurrection of Lazarus by Jesus. It goes even deeper than that though, especially in the finale, in which Diavolo succeeds in killing Giorno, only for the Requiem arrow to resurrect him as the King, clearly paralleling Jesus' crucifixion and rebirth at the hands of the Romans. Not only this, but the battle for the arrow symbolizes a concept in the book of Revelation, in which the devil is said to be waiting to inherit the earth as was promised to him, like how Diavolo pursues the arrow in order to be made king before being stopped by Giorno. It can go even further than that, with Bruno representing John the Baptist as an older precursor to Giorno's school of thought and supporter of his messianic vision. Fugo could be Judas, Misa could be St. Peter, and probably much more that I'm missing. But you get the point. Even on top of all the beautiful visuals and mastercraft writing, the story of Golden Wind runs deeper into depiction and allegory within its subtext to even further drive the narrative, which leads me to my conclusion to this video. I hope I've already illustrated the genius in the characters, fights, narrative, and depth for everyone to understand, and I've certainly showed you the gorgeous stylized visuals presented by David Productions for this anime, as well as called much deserved attention to the brilliant sound design and music, all of which blend into a perfectly fast-paced ride, leading to my conclusion that the combination of all of these artistic qualities has created the perfection of expression, the perfection of art. Hey, so if you enjoyed this video or want to show some love, go ahead and like the video, it would help me out a lot, and if you like the way I do things around here, consider subscribing. If there's any suggestions or critiques any of you guys have on my video,
Fuck you.
leave a comment and I'll be sure to see it. Anyways, toodles.